Early week one takeaways, injury reports, and Friday night stat projections on Good Morning College Football. Hello and welcome to episode 88 of Good Morning College Football from campus2canton.com. I'm Nicholas Ian Allen of CFB Winning Edge and Campus to Canton. Thanks so much for joining us fairly early on a Friday morning. We stayed up late to watch Sacramento State and San Jose State, so you didn't have to. But feeling a little early this morning, to be honest. But we had a nice little appetizer of week one action on Thursday night that we are going to discuss, give some takeaways from each game. And typically on Friday morning, we will discuss if there are Thursday night games. This week, as you know, more than we will have any other Friday morning show the rest of the year. But do want to highlight a few things that maybe you missed. And again, sort of on that earlier note, some of these games stretched a little late. I know I am still knocking off some rust from a long off season, so maybe you weren't able to catch everything going on. I tried my best to put my eyes on every game, at least in some form. But of course, we will dig into some of the numbers as well, see if there's anything that we were able to learn. Maybe we might be able to apply to the future, some injury news, unfortunately, but also, what are some of the players that maybe popped a little bit in week one in this first sampling of action ahead of the 2024 college football season. But before we really dig into it, as always, thank you so much for joining us on the Campus to Canton YouTube channel, for subscribing to the channel, giving this video a like. That really does help us a bunch. And then also, thanks so much to those of you who have subscribed to campus2canton.com. You can join for as little as $2.99 per month, get access to the Discord, tools on the site, written content, all kinds of great stuff. And then we also offer, a range of tiers that go all the way up to our all 22 and C2C Winning Edge tier packages. Those include a lot of the work that I do for Campus to Canton, or CFB Winning Edge team profiles, where you can keep track of depth chart updates, our power ratings, projections, 3 different point spread projection models. We'll win a game one of these days. We're 0-3 so far, 0-3-1, I guess. Looking ahead to as far as FBS versus FBS matchups go, but it's a good place to just sort of see how our numbers compare to the market, compare to other models out there. And we also do stat projections, returning production database as well. All of that available to our C2C Winning Edge and all 22 tier members at campus2canton.com. So let's discuss a little bit of Thursday night action. I am going to go in the order to which these games are presented in the ESPN scoreboard on ESPN.com. So not necessarily how they happen chronologically, but we'll start with the highest ranked teams in action first, and then move down, and unranked games do refer to the chronological order. So the first up, the highest ranked team in the AP top 25 to take the field on Thursday was Missouri, number 11, the Tigers. Missouri's number 15 in our team strength power ratings at CFB Winning Edge, but absolutely off to a great start this year. 51-0 over FCS Murray State. Brady Cook looked good, 19 of 30 passing for 218 yards and a touchdown. Nate Noel was the first running back listed on the depth chart for the Tigers. Maybe a little bit of a surprise. Marcus Carroll held that spot in our depth chart projections all off season. The 2 Sun Belt transfers, Noel from App State and Carroll from Georgia State, both modest numbers in week one. Noel got the most action as far as carries. He had 11 carries for 48 yards and a touchdown. Carroll also scored, had 35 yards on 6 carries there. Maybe the most notable thing to come out of this game, Theo Weiss Jr. and Brett Norfleet, wide receiver and tight end, respectively, both got banged up a little bit in the first half, did not return for the second half. After the game, head coach Eli Drinkwitz told reporters that he wasn't really concerned about either injury. So as of right now, both of those players are in our projections, our team profiles listed as probable for next week's matchup with Buffalo. But maybe something to monitor, because sometimes, the next day guys are a little bit more sore, or early next week. So keep an eye out for, and we will as well, news on Theo Weiss Jr. and Brett Norfleet for Missouri. Luther Burden got on the board early, had just 3 catches and 39 yards, but did score the first touchdown of the season, a 16-yarder from Cook, who also had a rushing touchdown in this game. Next up for us, getting back to the screen here, we're definitely just sort of winging it this morning. So my apologies if anything's a little bit bumpy. But number 12, Utah, number 12 in the AP poll, a little bit lower in our numbers after this game because Cam Rising did add a little bit of production, 1 production point to his individual player rating. Utah took a little bit of a step forward in our ratings, up to number 23 in our team strength power ratings. But Rising was great. Tight end Brant Keithy was great as well. Both of those players missed all of last season due to injury, so it's nice to see them back on the field. Utah, no problem with Southern Utah. 49-0 was the final score. Rising, incredible numbers, just 10 of 15, 2/3 solid if he's able to carry that on for the rest of the year. But 254 passing yards for an average of 16.9 per pass attempt. Just off the charts. 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Maybe a little bit of surprise standout statistically, running back Dejon Stanley had 6 carries. He was one of many running backs who took a handoff or a few, led the team with 34 rushing yards, but had 150 receiving yards on 3 catches. 2 of those went for touchdowns. The 79-yarder in the second quarter from Rising was the long play of the day. He also got the scoring started with a 64-yarder from Cam Rising. Keithy had 3 touchdown catches among his 4 receptions for 69 yards. Van Fillinger, a couple of sacks for the Utes on the defensive side of the ball. But Utah, absolutely no problem getting through their week 1 opponent, Southern Utah. No injuries of note that I was able to see. Admittedly, my viewing of this game was somewhat limited. Had it on a screen on the side that as soon as Utah got up early, didn't really wasn't glued to it quite as much. So see if we can learn anything about injuries or anything else. Saw something, a little chatter in our CFF Slack at Campus to Canton that running back Mike Mitchell, I think, got a little banged up, but returned and appeared to have shaken off whatever might have slowed him down. But again, we'll follow up with any information we're able to find, if any. But another shutout performance. Those highly ranked teams looking good so far in week 1. Number 22, Kansas, didn't get the shutout. Lindenwood, a new FCS program, was able to tack on a late field goal, but 48-3, the final score. Like the first 2 games, 100% post-game win expectancy. Numbers all look good. Perhaps the most important item of note, Jalen Daniels back and healthy. Had a great touchdown pass in this one, 58-yarder to Luke Grimm, who caught 6 passes for 111 yards and that touchdown. Devin Neal went over the 100-yard mark rushing, had 2 touchdowns on just 8 carries. Daniel Hishaw Jr. also scored on the ground, as did Savion Morrison. Hishaw, 66 yards on a game-high 9 attempts. But Kansas looking good. Mello Dotson, pick 6 in this game as well. But even though Jalen Daniels, modest numbers, 9 of 15, 148 yards, still almost 10 yards per pass attempt. So that is key. Did throw an interception. But the big news, the most important takeaway was Daniels healthy, played this game, looked pretty good doing so. So Kansas on the board with a big win in week 1. The final ranked team to take the field on Thursday night struggled far more than the others in this one. NC State, number 24, kind of a buzzy ACC title pick for a lot of folks. Got behind early against Western Carolina. They were down 7-0 in the first quarter, responded with a KC Concepcion reception, 17 yards from Grayson McCall, the transfer from Coastal Carolina, who also looked a little bit shaky, especially early on. The end of the game numbers ended up looking decent, but McCall, a little rusty. But Concepcion, absolutely a star, and had big plays early and late in this one. 17-yarder got NC State on the board, but Western Carolina responded. It goes up 14-7 by the end of the first quarter. Concepcion, another touchdown in the second half. So this game was tied at halftime, but Western Carolina scored again in the third quarter to take a 21-17 lead that the Wolfpack were not able to wrestle away until the fourth quarter. Once again, Concepcion's third touchdown of the game, 35-yarder from McCall, and then NC State was able to rely on Jordan Waters to help put the game away. He had 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns, finished with 20 carries and 123 yards. But Concepcion, 9 catches, 121 yards, and 3 touchdowns, all from Grayson McCall, who finished with 318 passing yards on 26 of 40 passing. Did have an interception. Justin Joly, the tight end transfer from UConn, looked good. Didn't get in the end zone, but 5 catches for 75 yards was a featured part of the offense for the Wolfpack, who, maybe a little bit of a wake-up call for NC State. Struggle a little bit through the first 3 quarters before putting away what is considered a top 20, top 25 type FCS program. So Western Carolina, definitely a quality FCS matchup, but this was unexpectedly close, but good to see that McCall bounced back a little bit, looked stronger as the game went on. Concepcion, huge numbers. Waters looked good running the football. That was the main area of concern for NC State offensively last season. So good to see that back, on the to get off to a good start, we'll say, for week 1. All right, the first game of the night kicked off with Rutgers hosting Howard. And the maybe newsiest item to me starting, Rutgers was down 4 defensive starters due to injury. Defensive lineman Wesley Bailey, defensive back Flip Dixon. We got word that Tyreen Powell, who suffered a torn Achilles in February, who was dressed out for pregame warmups, ended up not being able to play, but looks like he's getting a little bit closer. And then, as we discussed in recent weeks, Mohamed Toure, the star linebacker for the Scarlet Knights, suffered a torn ACL in fall camp. He's going to be out for the season. A few other players missed this as well, but Rutgers started a little bit slow, were able to pull away late, Ethan Kaliakmanis had 3 touchdown passes, but averaged just 6.1 yards per attempt, finished with 147 yards. Cal Monangai, no surprise, had the best numbers for the Scarlet Knights. 19 carries, 165 yards, and 1 touchdown. Samuel Brown got some action as well. Monangai's top backup. He had 68 rushing yards on 14 carries. Antoine Raymond, maybe a name to file away, 49 yards and a touchdown, average 8.2 yards per carry. Kaliakmanis added a little bit of rushing production as well with 43 yards. But Rutgers, had a pick six early. Eric Rogers got the Scarlet Knights on the board with a 52-yarder. But they were ahead just 17-7 at halftime before pulling away in the second half, with Monangai carrying a fair amount of the workload in the third quarter to put some distance between them and Howard. Moving on, looking at the next game up on our list, Wake Forest. Wake Forest hosted North Carolina A&T. Michael Kern got the start at quarterback. He and Hank Bachmeier, the transfer previously at Boise State and most recently at Louisiana Tech, have been in a competition for this job in fall camp. Seems like maybe it was expected to be ongoing, but if you just look at the numbers, look at how the game played out, Bachmeier certainly outplayed Michael Kern. Bachmeier finished with 18 of 28, 18 completions on 28 attempts for 263 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 9.4 yards per attempt. Kern only attempted 8 passes, completed 5 of them for 57 yards. Running back Damon Claiborne looked good, 17 carries for 135 yards and a touchdown. Taylor Morin, big game, 6 catches, 100 yards receiving. He also scored on a 73-yard punt return, so Morin looking like the top target, most likely for Bachmeier moving forward. We did move Bachmeier back into the number 1 spot in our Wake Forest QB projected depth chart. I'm expecting he'll get the start next week, but nothing official yet, I don't believe. Donovan Green looked good coming back from injury, missed all of last season, caught 3 passes, 72 yards, and a touchdown. Deuce Alexander was a featured receiver as well, had 69 yards and a touchdown on 5 catches. Horatio Fields, who a little bit of a surprise starter as far as our projections went, had a touchdown, 33 yards on 3 catches. But that Wake Forest passing attack looked pretty good with Bachmeier running the show for the most part. But Damon Claiborne is the player to target, I think, for fantasy purposes, and definitely got off to a good start there. UCF absolutely blasted New Hampshire 57-3. UCF, as you may know, I reference it anytime the Knights come up, our number 1 team in our Big 12 power ratings. That is not my opinion. That makes me very nervous. But if this final score is any indication, UCF definitely going to be a high-scoring team. And KJ Jefferson got off to a bit of a slow start, the Arkansas QB transfer, but did finish with 11.7 yards per pass attempt, was picked off, but had 2 TD passes, just 7 of 14 passing for the Knights. But think that he'll have an opportunity to improve upon that. Did carry the football 11 times, which tied R.J. Harvey for the most rushing attempts for UCF in this game. Had 39 rushing yards and a touchdown. Harvey finished with 142 yards and 2 scores. Penny Boone didn't get a lot of action in the early part of the night, but had 81 yards on the ground and a touchdown, 59 yards, his long, on 7 carries. Miles Montgomery got action as well. Backup QB Corey Brown, Johnny Richardson. So it is a deep UCF running back room. Harvey looks like the clear leader, but Boone, Montgomery, and Richardson, I think, all going to factor in. Kobe Hudson led the team with 61 yards on 2 catches. Montgomery and Richardson both had receiving touchdowns in this game for UCF. Elsewhere, moving on. In the MAC, we had 3 teams take the field: Buffalo, Bowling Green, and Central Michigan. 4, actually. Toledo played as well. All got through with week 1 wins. Buffalo, the tightest of the group. Al-Jay Henderson was a starter at running back, finished with just 37 yards on 13 carries. He did have a touchdown. Jaquez Barksdale, who was 3rd on the running back depth chart, actually had the most productive day, 99 yards on 14 carries and a score. Nick McMillan got off to a good start in this game, finished with 5 catches, 76 yards and a touchdown. Taji Johnson, the transfer from Boston College, also had a touchdown, both from quarterback CJ Agbana, who was the only Buffalo QB to attempt a pass. He was 14 of 24 for 195 yards and 2 scores. They're not our highest rated MAC team in our power ratings, but my opinion, I think that Bowling Green's probably the team to beat in the MAC this year, and they looked like it. Returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown in a 41-17 victory over Fordham. Justin Pegues, transfer from the FCS level, got the Falcons off to a great start. Now, one item of note, and we do make these updates to our team profiles as quickly as possible once these games go final. The post-game win expectancy number for Bowling Green, according to collegefootballdata.com, was just 31%. Trying to dig into the numbers a little bit more on gameofpaper.com. It's a great source for seeing how these advanced box scores really shake out. It was a little bit of a mixed bag for Bowling Green. The special teams score is certainly key, but the Falcons did average just 5.5 yards per play. Some numbers were great. EPA per rush, 0.56. That's in the 99th percentile. So really up there, 51% success rate, 90th percentile, 60% success rate in the red zone at 83%. Also on third down, Bowling Green looked good. The passing production, not great. Yards per dropback attempt, 0.43, which is as bad as it gets, basically. 0 percentile there. Explosive play rate, just 7%. That's in the 34th percentile. So Bowling Green seemingly was in control of this game. I mean, from the opening kickoff, 27-3 at halftime. But second half, didn't really look nearly as dominant. Connor Bazelak had 168 passing yards on 15 of 22 passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Did have a rushing touchdown. Terrion Stewart looked great, running back, 3 touchdowns on his 14 carries, went for 161 yards. That included a 73-yarder. Tight end Harold Fannin Jr., the number 1 tight end in our stat projections. He had 6 catches for 67 yards. Bowling Green did play without what was expected to be one of its starting wide receivers. RJ Garcia II was listed as number 2 receiver at the Z position behind Malcolm Johnson Jr. on the depth chart, but he was out with a lower body injury. Reporters indicated he was dealing again with a lower body injury. We'll have to see if that is going to impact his availability next week when Bowling Green goes to Penn State. The rest of the MAC roundup: Central Michigan, who is playing without Bert Emanuel Jr., who was expected to be in a competition with Joe Labas, the transfer from Iowa. But Labas, and my apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, might be Labas, I'm not sure, didn't have the volume on for this game, but it was over pretty quickly as well. Central Michigan gets the 66-10 victory over Central Connecticut, 42-7 at halftime, then put up 24 in the third quarter. This game was a dominant performance from the Chippewas. LaBosse had 342 passing yards with an average of 14.3 per attempt, 3 touchdowns on 18 for 24. So, Emmanuel certainly has value as a runner, but these numbers are a huge step in the right direction as far as passing production goes. So it seems highly likely that Central Michigan is going to probably give LaBosse a fairly long leash at the quarterback position, depending on whether or not Emmanuel is going to be available again soon. The rushing attack, Miles Bailey led the way with 68 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on 9 carries. Injury of note, Marion Lukes was unavailable. Lukes, the former All-MAC running back, expected actually to be the top ball carrier in our projected depth charts, but was not able to go on Thursday night. We'll see if we can find out more to determine whether or not that injury is going to impact his availability moving forward. But Solomon Davis, the transfer, top target for LaBosse, or most productive receiver at least, 4 catches, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Evan Boyd, 78 yards and a touchdown as well. Redshirt freshman backup wide receiver for the Chippewas. The final MAC game, Toledo taking on Duquesne. I mentioned Bowling Green, I think, is the team to beat in the MAC, but Toledo is actually our highest rated MAC team in our power rankings. Tucker Gleason looked good, 202 yards, 3 touchdowns, 8.4 yards per attempt. They spread the workload pretty evenly at the running back position. Willie Shaw finished as the leader with 50 rushing yards. He had a touchdown on 7 carries. Jacquez Stewart, expected to be the top ball carrier for the Rockets this year, had 2 touchdowns, but just 34 yards on his 7 carries. Savon Clark, the transfer from Georgia, got in the mix as well, actually led with 8 carries, but for just 29 yards. Jerwan Newton, top wideout, all-MAC performer, 5 catches, 98 yards and a touchdown. Anthony Torres, tight end, 3 catches, 39 yards and a touchdown. Junior Van Der Ross III also had a touchdown catch for the Rockets. The Arkansas Razorbacks were as dominant as it gets. 10 touchdown drives for the Hogs. This game was in Little Rock, not in Fayetteville, but the transfers, new look Arkansas offense in good hands with Bobby Petrino. Talon Green leading the way. Good passing numbers, 16 of 23, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's 10 yards per attempt. Green also had a big 36-yard scramble. He finished with 88 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns on 6 carries. Jaquindon Jackson, the Utah transfer, looked like he had slimmed down a little bit, in my opinion, but still runs strong, looks quick. 8 carries, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a 46-yarder for the Hogs, who were without expected to be perhaps the top target for Green this year. Andrew Armstrong did not take the field for Arkansas in week 1. In this one, sounds like hopefully he'll be able to make it back next week, but that's one that we'll have to follow up on as well. Isaac Tesla, 53 yards, led Arkansas. His 3 catches, he was one of 4 Arkansas receivers with 3 catches. That included tight end Luke Haas, who had 3 for 42 yards. Tyron Broden had a touchdown catch, as did Ty Washington. Whew. All right. We are to perhaps our Heisman Trophy discussion here. Colorado was able to survive North Dakota State. Colorado looked improved, in my opinion, on the line of scrimmage, which was the main concern. North Dakota State definitely tried to play keep away at times, as was expected. We talked about that a little bit on the CFP Winning Edge podcast earlier this week. The Bison, run the football pretty well historically, and run a relatively slow pace. Did some projections earlier. There was a question in our Discord about pace of play for the North Dakota State offense. They would have ranked 112th at the FBS level as far as plays per game. If my calculations were correct as far as the projected or the time between snaps, NDSU actually would have ranked among the very lowest in that category had they compared to the FBS. And for a little while that seemed to work. But Colorado, Shedeur Sanders, huge numbers, look great, quite honestly. Averaged 13.1 yards per attempt, had 445 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, which was really a fluky pick in the end zone. Jimmy Horn Jr., a little bit of a surprise to me because the early buzz coming out of fall camp was that Will Shepherd maybe had squeezed Horn out of a starting spot, but if week 1 is any indication, Horn is absolutely going to be in the mix as one of the top receivers for Sanders. He had 198 yards and a touchdown on 7 catches. Travis Hunter, just an incredible game. Played well on defense, but 3 touchdown catches on his 7 receptions for 132 yards, including what might be the catch of the year in week 1. You saw it, I'm sure. But in the end zone with a defender draped all over him, don't know how in the world he was able to contort his body into making that catch. But Hunter and Sanders right now, you have to think as far as just week 1 performances go, maybe atop the Heisman list, the discussion there. Those two are definitely going to be fun to watch. And this game, Colorado a little bit fortunate, perhaps. There was certainly some disagreement with the Buffs in their late 4th quarter possession, doing a long pass attempt that stopped the clock with an incompletion. NDSU able to get the ball back, actually had an opportunity, had the ball with could have gone down and won the game on that final possession, had a Hail Mary come up 5 yards short. But Colorado, it felt almost like the NC State survived a bit more than Colorado, but Colorado, it could have ended badly. So there were certainly some improvements. There were some outstanding performances. But the Buffs, they deserve the win as far as the post-game numbers go, but maybe a little close for comfort in some ways, and a little bit questionable as far as some decision-making from the coaching staff there at the end. They had a 60% post-game win expectancy number, according to collegefootballdata.com. The game on paper numbers, pulling up here, all green early on as far as EPA per play, 92nd percentile, success rate, 95th percentile, yards per play, 96th percentile. And this isn't the dominant North Dakota State that we saw over the previous decade. They've slipped a little bit, at least in comparison to the elite of the FCS level. That's been South Dakota State over the last couple of years. But these are great numbers for Colorado, 12.71 yards per drop back pass attempt. That's in the 97th percentile. But if you're looking for, did the Buffs improve defensively? On the flip side, yards per drop back for NDSU, 10.43, 93rd percentile. EPA per drop back, they were in the 87th percentile. Yards per play, 69th. Success rate, 69th. EPA per play, 72nd. Even though this is a FCS playoff team, a top 5, top 10 type FCS program, still you would hope that Colorado, with its talent edge in this game, our projected talent edge was about 2 touchdowns. You would have hoped maybe for a little bit of a better performance defensively, but to get the win is off, Colorado off to a good start, and the numbers for Sanders and Hunter and Horn just excellent. So great performance, certainly from a fantasy perspective for that crew in week 1. All right, getting back to our rundown here. Pardon me. Coastal Carolina. This one, I mentioned we'll win a game eventually in our team strength projections. This one, we pretty clearly had Jacksonville State as the favorite here and expected to cover in all three of our projection models. And it was all Coastal Carolina from the get-go. 55-27 was the final score. The Chanticleers, got off to not the fastest of starts, but field goal early. Jacksonville State tied it up mid to late fourth quarter, but then Coastal Carolina, it had a 36-yard touchdown pass from Ethan Vasco, had a 17-yard fumble return from Clev Lubin transfer, and then a couple of just quick drives early second quarter as well for touchdowns. Ended up taking a 31-3 lead, 31-10 at halftime. Jacksonville State was able to tack on a very late touchdown run. But then Coastal Carolina just continued in the second half, ended up pushing their lead to 41-10 at the end of the third quarter. Jacksonville State was able to make it a little closer in garbage time, but turnovers and inconsistency at the quarterback position. Logan Smothers and Tyler Huff both played for Jacksonville State. Huff had better numbers, 173 yards and a touchdown, but a lot of that was a 92-yarder to Michael Petway that certainly ended up skewing his numbers a little bit. But it seems like moving forward, Huff might be the quarterback who gets the first shot in week 2 for the Gamecocks. But Rich Rodriguez, and there's a lot of quarterbacks available, even though Smothers and Huff were the only two to attempt passes in this one. Won't be surprised if we see both. Won't be surprised if we see maybe Zion Turner, the UConn transfer, get a little bit of playing time moving forward, but definitely a disappointing start for Jacksonville State in this one. The rushing attack, struggled certainly by Jacksonville State standards, just 123 yards on the ground. Did have 2 touchdowns. Trey Stewart led with 62 rushing yards. He had a 38-yarder, had a touchdown on 4 carries. Anwar Lewis got the heaviest workload at the running back position, 9 carries, but just 27 yards. Andrew Paul, the transfer from Georgia, very limited numbers, 3 carries, 5 yards. And Jacksonville State was a little bit shorthanded at the running back position. News earlier in the week was that Ron Wiggins, is going to miss the vast majority, if not the entire season, due to a toe injury. Looked like maybe 10 weeks, something like that. So running back, usually an area of strength for the Gamecocks. The rushing attack, usually an area of strength for Rich Rodriguez and his teams, but did not look like it on Thursday night. The Chanticleers played very well. Vasco, who was the starter here, but it was not officially named the starter until very late in the week. He finished with 12 of 19 pass attempts for 249 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have an interception, but averaged 13.1 yards per attempt. Trey Taylor, junior college transfer, had 3 catches, 98 yards, and a touchdown. Taylor is also a punt returner for the Chanticleers, so maybe a name to note, maybe a new name that you might have missed during the offseason. Running backs spread the work pretty evenly. Braden Bennett and Javon Simpkins are both listed as starters for Coastal Carolina. They basically split that early workload. Bennett did have 2 touchdowns on his 11 carries for 60 yards. Simpkins had 80 yards on his 12 carries. Christian Washington, the transfer from New Mexico, had 47 yards and 13 carries, which actually ended up being the top number for Coastal in this one, but pretty clearly I think he's 3rd in that pecking order. Vasco also had 12 carries, 39 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. But Coastal Carolina finished last season strong. I guess didn't quite register with me. I felt pretty confident in Jacksonville State in this one, and our numbers certainly did. But it was all CCU early on. All right, let's get to the rest here. Some blowouts at the FCS level. UAB 41-3 over Alcorn State. Jacob Zeno, decent numbers, 215 yards and 2 touchdowns in that one. Lee Beebe Jr. had 82 yards and 2 scores. Tulane, maybe a little bit of a surprise late in the week. It looked like Darian Mensah was going to get the start at quarterback. Ty Thompson and Kai Horton both played in this game, but Mensah looked great, 17.1 yards per pass attempt in the 42-0 win over Southeastern Louisiana. He had 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mekhi Hughes, just 59 yards and a touchdown on 14 carries. Mario Williams was the standout receiver with 4 catches and 124 yards. That included a 68-yard completion from Mensah, who looks like he's going to be the starter moving forward based on the amount of snaps he got and the good numbers. Kirk Francis at Tulsa put up huge numbers for the Golden Hurricane. He's also was in an ongoing quarterback competition with multiple others expected to play, but Francis, the only one who completed a pass or attempted to pass, 23 of 30 passing for him, 299 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 10 yards per pass attempt. Looked great. The top receiver, Purdue transfer Zion Steptoe, 5 catches, 88 yards. Camden Benjamin had a touchdown on his 5 catches for 65 yards. Connor Vaughn caught 2 TDs, and Jeremiah Ballard had a touchdown as well. But Kirk Francis looks like he, at least for the time being, has ended any QB competition there. North Carolina, the perhaps most impactful injury news of the week 1 Thursday night. Max Johnson, starting quarterback, went down in the second half with what looked like a significant knee injury. Don't want to speculate on exactly what may have happened, but pretty ugly. Got twisted up, knee bent in a way it wasn't supposed to. We have not removed Johnson from our projected depth charts just yet. We will wait and get confirmation, but my hunch is that Johnson's going to miss probably the rest of the season due to a knee injury. That's going to leave Connor Harrell as the top quarterback for the Tar Heels, who found a way to win this game. It was not pretty on either side for North Carolina or Minnesota. 19-17, the Gophers missed a last-second field goal attempt to come up just short. But Omarion Hampton, as expected, and certainly moving forward, if Johnson is going to be unavailable, expecting more 30-yard or 30 carry nights for Hampton. He finished with 129 yards, did not score. Max Johnson had a rushing touchdown, the only touchdown for the Tar Heels on the day. But Johnson, didn't look great as a passer prior to the injury. Completed 12 of 19 passes for just 71 yards, 3.7 yards per attempt. Harrell came in, was 2 of 4 passing for 34 yards. J.J. Jones was the leader with 52 receiving yards. He had 3 catches. Hampton also caught 5 passes out of the backfield, just 17 yards, but good to see, find ways to get your best player the football, and North Carolina at least did that. Bryson Nesbitt, tight end, had just 15 yards on 2 catches. Minnesota was playing without Darius Taylor. Not sure what the level of his unavailability moving forward will be, but Marcus Major, the Oklahoma transfer, even though the numbers weren't great, 73 yards and a touchdown on 20 carries, looked good to me. look like he's certainly capable of stepping up and being a productive runner for the Gophers. If Taylor is going to be limited moving forward. Daniel Jackson, there was some question coming into this game as to whether or not he would be available due to injury. He ended up with 55 receiving yards on 4 catches for the Gophers. Max Brosmer, the New Hampshire transfer, modest numbers, 13 of 21, 166 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. But compared to what we saw last year, perhaps a little bit of a step forward as far as the passing attack goes. But neither North Carolina or Minnesota look great offensively. If you're looking for maybe a silver lining, both of these teams really struggled defensively last season. The Tar Heels, with Jeff Collins as the new defensive coordinator, actually played pretty well defensively speaking. A lot of havoc. Jahvaree Ritzie had 3 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. Kamon Rocker, one of the best defenders in college football from a pass rushing perspective, had 2 tackles for loss, including a sack. Amari Campbell had a sack as well. So 5 UNC sacks on 26 Minnesota pass attempts. Pretty good numbers there for the Tar Heels defensively. But was it because they're much improved, or was it because Minnesota, once again, struggling on the offensive side of the ball and shorthanded as well? All right, 3 more to finish here. UL Monroe, the Warhawks, the new era there for ULM. General Booty started at quarterback, just 104 passing yards, but did show a little bit of running ability on a 31-yard scamper. Finished with just 22 yards on 8 carries, but something to note there. Maybe Booty will be able to run it a little bit. A true freshman, Ahmad Hardy, led the Warhawks with 103 rushing yards and a touchdown on 19 carries. James Jones was second with 9 rushing attempts for 54 yards. Hunter Smith did not take a carry for ULM. He was expected to be the top running back coming in, but Hardy looking ready to maybe become a starter, depending on what may be ailing Smith or whatever the factor was there. Admittedly, have not learned what that might be. Javon Campbell, junior college transfer, led the way for the Warhawks as far as receiving yards. He had 83 yards and a touchdown on 4 catches. Devon Wells, FCS transfer from Long Island, had 4 catches as well and a touchdown, but just 26 yards there. But ULM getting off on a winning note. Good start for that program there. Illinois, easy 45-0 victory over Eastern Illinois. Luke Altmaier, great numbers, 4 touchdowns, 8.9 yards per pass attempt, completed 19 of 24 passes for 213 yards. Caden Fegan, the big running back, 16 carries, 108 yards, and a touchdown. That's a solid start. Aiden Lowry, 79 yards on 10 carries. Top targets, top wideouts, Pat Bryant and Malik Elzy, both on the receiving end of Altmaier touchdown passes. Bryant finished with 5 catches, 63 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Elzy had 51 yards on 2 catches. Tight end Tanner Arkin was the other TD receiver. He had just the 1 catch for 5 yards and a touchdown. Finally, the last game of the night, San Jose State, Sacramento State, what kept me up till 2 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast. But Emmett Brown wins the quarterback battle in fall camp and seemingly played well enough to hold it moving forward, completed 20 of 34 passes, 298 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. That's an average of 8.8 yards per pass attempt. Brown, honestly, a little bit shaky early, had a couple of turnovers in this game, but settled down, played well. Nick Nash was the star of the day. The converted quarterback did throw a touchdown pass, 26-yarder, but also on the receiving end of 10 passes for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. Justin Lockhart missed all of 2023, but he is back, 4 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown. Jacob Stewart also had a TD catch, but Floyd Chalk IV running back transfer from Grambling, looked good. He's small but quick, powerfully built in my brief view there, but 18 carries, 87 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Chalk was expected to split fairly even workload with Jabari Bates, but Bates just 6 carries, 26 yards, so it looks like Chalk likely to get a heavier workload in the what San Jose State's calling the spread and shred. But the numbers ended up looking pretty good for San Jose State. They did score 28 second half points. The Spartans did not look good early. Sacramento State is a quality FCS program, so this is a good win. And the fact that San Jose State was able to put some distance on the final score at the end of the game, and certainly some quality performances from Nash, especially Chalk as well. Emmett Brown, decent numbers. Ken Niumatalolo, head coach, getting a win in his first game, certainly a positive. But I don't know. I'm not fully bought in personally just yet on the San Jose State offense, even though the numbers ended up looking pretty good. Okay, so that is going to do it for our week 1 takeaways. We are going to hit some stat projections here very quickly for Friday night games. Let's just take a look at the quarterback passing numbers to start for Michigan State, who's hosting Florida Atlantic today, or Friday. Aiden Childs, according to Underdog, is expected to go for 217.5 passing yards. For us, as far as our projections go, we're significantly under that. We're lower using the Underdog terminology. We have Childs just going for 168 passing yards, so maybe a little bit of value there. Cam Fancher for FAU, he is listed at 177 passing yards for the Owls of FAU. We are also under that. Our projection for Fancher, 157, so we're lower, on the passing yardage numbers in that one. At Oklahoma, Jackson Arnold is listed at 268.5 yards for the Sooners, getting his, did get the start in the bowl game, but really is first go at it as a full season starter here. The number's 268.5 for Arnold against Temple. We are higher than that. We have Arnold knocking on the door of 300 passing yards, 292.98 in our projections there for the Sooners. So maybe a little bit of value potentially for him. Tyler Van Dyke for Wisconsin, which takes on Western Michigan. Tyler Van Dyke, our projection is 174.6, so significantly lower than the Underdog listed number of 255.5. So that projection that admittedly seems quite low. However, perhaps a little bit of value, and I think unders and lower numbers in week 1. I'd rather be a little bit lower on Van Dyke, I think, than higher, if that makes sense. Let's see what else we've got. Josh Hoover in the nightcap against Stanford, TCU's quarterback, listed at 284.5. According to Underdog. This is another one. We are significantly lower. We're at 206.8 for our projection there. And then, of course, there's a full slate of games on Saturday. We will be discussing these projections, also some rushing yardage projections, all of our projected passing, rushing, and receiving projections for quarterback, top 2 running backs, top 2 wide receivers, and tight end, and those roles. Even if you maybe disagree with the player that we have slotted in as that number 1 wideout, that number 2 wideout, our projections at CFP Winning Edge are a little more closely tied to the role specifically rather than the player itself. But as you can see, the differences compared to the market can be significant, especially early on in the season. So posted about this in the Discord, have talked about it as well, that our numbers, we think that hopefully they add some value, but especially where there's a big gap, it's always good to compare to other sources, and also maybe revert to the market a bit as well when determining, if the value is true or significant on some of these. But if you have an interest in comparing our rushing or receiving projections to what's listed there at Underdog, great place to do that is our CFP Winning Edge stat projections, which are available to the All 22 and C2C Winning Edge tier members at campus2canton.com. We'll also be discussing these numbers on Saturday morning on the tailgate here on the Campus to Canton YouTube channel. I'll be there. Plenty of others from Campus to Canton. It's a rotating cast of characters week in and week out. But we always have a great time, always discuss the higher and lower Underdog projections, some of our favorites there, as well as some of our favorite projections from a point spread perspective. So do tune in if you are looking for college fantasy football discussion, rankings, start sits, stat projections, point spread projections, all that good stuff. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern on the Campus to Canton YouTube channel. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you for giving this video a like. Again, this is a long-winded week 1 takeaway. We normally won't have nearly as much to talk about Thursday. Threw a lot of numbers at you, but hopefully added a little bit of context and some insight as well on some injuries and how some of the pecking order maybe shook out on some of those games in case you missed it, didn't get an opportunity to see all of them. And it's a lot to keep up with. 96 games, I believe it is, in week 1. So many FBS versus FCS matchups. It can be tough to put your eyes on everything. So try the best that we can, but definitely do have to dig into the numbers sometimes to try to learn a little bit more. Can't see and consume everything, unfortunately, as much as we try. But hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Enjoy a smaller Friday night slate and then a packed Saturday with some big games. Really looking forward to Clemson, Georgia, Notre Dame, and Texas A&M, West Virginia, and Penn State, among others. So we will be back on Monday. We'll do a full week 1 wrap-up. It'll probably be somewhat similar to this, but maybe not as in-depth on every game. But hope you enjoy the games, and we will see you here on Monday for Good Morning College Football. I'm Nicholas Ian Allen of CFP Winning Edge at Campus Canton. Take care.